I have a tendency to speak loud and fast, and so I'm going to do my best to make sure I communicate. And then you guys all, this is the universal symbol for slowing down. So if I'm too excited, just do that right there. But before we get started, thank you everyone for being here. It's tremendous that you would take a day off to come and do this. I owe just so much to Sarah for being willing to host, and for Susan and her willingness to speak and all her help, and Dom Lepore, who's going to speak this afternoon, and Amy. All these things just couldn't have happened. I'm just very, very thankful that you would take this time. But again, my name is Gordon Duncan. I know a lot of you. Some of you have just met for the first time. And some of you, I may not have a chance yet to say hello, but I want to do that later on. But yes, I've been married to Amy for nearly 26 years, and we do have 3 amazing daughters, Meredith, Landry, and Emma. And they really are just the best part of mine and Amy's life. I'm very thankful for them. But by way of getting started today, what I want to do is, I'm a mover, so I'm going to do my best to make sure you can still hear me. But I want to start with a story that'll help us get started for LeaderShift, and it begins in 2012. So in 2012, Amy and I were living in a town called Garner, North Carolina, which is outside of Raleigh. It's a little suburb, and we were there because at that time I was a full-time pastor, church planter. Now, a church planter is when a group or organization sends out someone and says, hey, start a church where one doesn't exist. And we had been there since '05, and we did what's called a parachute plant or a scratch plant. That's when you go into a town with no people and you start from scratch, or they parachute you in and like, go do it. Well, as you can imagine, when you do a situation like that, you often have to have a second job. That's called bivocational church planting, and that's what I did. I was an optometric consultant, working with eye doctors and planting and pastoring and doing whatever needed to get done at that time. And it was wonderful and wonderfully exhausting. Day in and day out, Amy and I loved what we did, and I'd have to wake up each day and go, who am I today? Am I a consultant? Am I a pastor? Am I a missionary? Am I a dad? And my kids were helping at church, and Amy it was wonderful. But we were just flat burned out. And we had an opportunity to go stay at a friend's house up the lake in Charlotte, North Carolina. And we loved this house. There's no internet and no cable. And my kids would just curl up on the couch and we'd read books. It was a place of rest for us. And so we got there, and this is April 2012. And the goal is to just break away from everything, right? You've had those moments where you're like, we did it. We got there. We got to the vacation spot. We got where we can relax. And I received a phone call from my sister that said, Gordon, Dad just passed away. Now, my father, Tom Duncan, I had a tremendous relationship with him. His nickname was Sam, and that's probably a conversation for the after party. I'll tell you how he got called Sam. But she said, Dad just passed away. And Dad was one of my cheerleaders. He was also a pastor and a writer and an artist, and so many of the great qualities I got from him. So, and some of you have been through that. Some of you have lost a father, and you just know what that impact is, perhaps. So, it wasn't completely a surprise. My father had every poor health condition in the world. I mean, he diabetes and was on oxygen, but we didn't expect in that moment that he'd pass away. Well, soon after I got out of the phone call, my brain is thinking, well, we're going to pack up from vacation and explain to the kids and head home. And I received another phone call just immediately following, and I didn't even look and see who it was. Just bleary-eyed, I just assumed it had something to do with my father's passing. So I answered that call, and it was from a pastor here in Fredericksburg. And he said he didn't know anything about what's going on with my dad, didn't know we were on vacation. And he said, Gordon, I want to get straight to the point. I'd like for you to move to Fredericksburg and start another church. And I said, well, listen, thank you for the invitation, but I've never thought about leaving the church I planted. I've never thought about planting a second one. And really, right now, the most pressing issue is my father's just passed. And so I'm just going to say thank you, but no. And we've just got these things in front of us, but it's not something I've really ever considered. And he was very gracious. And in fact, some of the folks from Fredericksburg that were interested in us coming up actually went to my father's funeral. It made a huge impact on me. I was like, I don't know you folks, and how kind of you. Well, over the next few months, I'm trying to learn, how to be a man without a father. And the folks here in Fredericksburg keep asking us, And so Amy and I said, tell you what, we'll help out a little bit. And they asked us to design a church plant proposal, which is a lot like a 3-year business plan. Many of you have done that, but it's more geared towards mission and vision and demographics and how do you start a church. And they finally told us over the course of that time, listen, we're not going to wear you out, but this is yours if you want it. Well, we began to think, maybe the church we started might be better with a new vision or a new voice, or it might be exciting. But you can imagine all the obstacles that are in front of you, and the economy is still not completely put back together in 2012. Well, finally, after a series of time, Amy and I felt like it was the right thing for us to do, and my primary concern was my mother. I mean, she'd been married to my dad 52 years. She basically walked off the podium with her diploma in 1955 and walked up to the altar and got married. And so that had been her entire life, and she's trying to figure out how to get out of bed every morning. And that was my primary concern. But I had siblings in the area. And so Amy and I, in August of that year, it was on a Tuesday. I remember we were at our favorite little sushi restaurant. And so we sat down with Mom and said, Mom, we're really thinking about doing this, but I'm worried about you. And Mom was my second cheerleader. And she was like, no, this would be great for you guys. This is the perfect thing for you guys to do. Go do it. I'll be fine. And so I always have to share this next part of the story gently. That was on a Tuesday. But on that Friday, my mother got in a car crash and passed away.